In 2022, a man who had been in a medically induced coma who couldn't lift his head up or move his left side, he told his family something and they put it in writing. I'm not done. I will not stop fighting until I can walk across that stage again. In this April, he walked across the stage. That man was Sinbad. Now, I'll be honest, I had no idea that he was back doing stand-up. So when y'all started putting his name all throughout the comments for this new series, Take a Bow, I already knew he belonged here. Then Lil Rel hopped in the comments and said that Sinbad was a big one for him too. And once I started looking into everything that Sinbad had been through just to get back on that stage, I was like, yeah, okay, we're going to do Sinbad like right now. Because I remember Sinbad. I remember watching him with my family. But what I didn't know is how close we came to losing him. But before we get there, I want to talk about the Sinbad that I remember. Because I don't even really remember being introduced to Sinbad, you know? I just remember him being there. A Different World, House Guest, First Kid, the comedy specials. And mostly, I remember watching him with my family. Sinbad was one of those people that everybody in the house thought was funny. And that's actually really hard to do, right? Because my parents didn't think everything we thought was funny, and vice versa, you know? But Sinbad, everybody could sit down and watch Sinbad and know that he was funny. And clearly, a lot of y'all remember him that way too. So here are a few facts about him. His real name is David Atkins. He's from Benton Harbor, Michigan. His daddy was a Baptist minister. He played basketball at the University of Denver. And then this man joined the United States Air Force. So Sinbad and I are both Air Force veterans, which is crazy to me. So naturally, just out of curiosity, I went to go see what Sinbad did in the Air Force. And sir, what were you doing? Because according to Sinbad himself, he wasn't exactly thriving in military life. He got in trouble, he went AWOL more than once, and eventually his military career came to an end, which may have been best for everybody involved because this man goes from that to Star Search, and that's where people really start seeing him, right? Then Red Fox puts him on the Red Fox show, and in 1987 he gets A Different World, Coach Oaks. Y'all remember Coach Oaks? Because if you remember A Different World, if you actually watched A Different World, I don't have to explain Coach Oaks to you. But what I think I loved about Sinbad on that show is that he fit. Hillman felt like a real place. I remember repeatedly asking my parents if it was an actual HBCU. And Coach Oaks felt like somebody who actually worked there. Then a couple years later, Sinbad starts hosting Showtime at the Apollo. And I had already seen it before, but when I started flipping through old footage, I saw him standing next to Kiki Shepard. And it made my day. Because Kiki is where this series started, right? She's the first person I wanted to give flowers to. And now y'all gave me Sinbad. And I find all the photos and videos of them standing together at the Apollo. This is what I'm talking about. Everybody's connected. And then Sinbad becomes Sinbad, the version I remember, because that man could get on stage and talk. That's really the only way I know how to describe his comedy, you know? He would start telling you a story, and there wasn't always some obvious setup where you knew a punchline was coming. Sometimes you were just listening to Sinbad talk about his family. Then he's doing somebody's voice. Now he's halfway across the stage. He's arguing with a person who isn't even there. And you are crying laughing because he was so good at this. He is so good at this. And he didn't curse. No profanity. Which honestly, I even hesitate to mention because I feel like sometimes when people hear clean comedy, they think, well, he's not that funny. But you know, you can watch him at church. But nah, Sinbad is funny. And that's why he could have the entire family sitting in front of the TV at the same time. Then there are the movies. House Guest, First Kid, Jingle All the Way. And apparently Shazam. Look, now I'm not going to be fighting with y'all in these comments. Sinbad has never made a movie called Shazam. That was Shaq, I think. He did not play a genie named Shazam. And I know some of y'all are looking at me right now like, Ashley, I saw it. Okay, take that up with Sinbad. Because for years, this man has been telling y'all that he was not in the movie that y'all remember him being in. And y'all don't even believe him. So who am I? At this point, I don't think anything's going to change y'all's minds. So moving on. So now there's something else that I found out about Sinbad. In the 90s, he started putting on all these music festivals in the Caribbean. And when I saw who was performing, I was like, wait. Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Ohio Players, the Gap Band, Shaka Khan. Sinbad was bringing out people that he grew up listening to. And at this point, he's everywhere. He has the HBO specials. He's doing the movies. He's got his own audience. And he's using all of that to put on festivals with the people whose music he grew up on. I didn't know that. And I went back and watched some of it. And Sinbad is having the time of his life. He's not standing off to the side hosting like this is some little vanity project. He's out there in the clothes, dancing, playing percussions, getting on stage with the people. You could tell that this is for him too. He genuinely loved this music. And I think that's probably my favorite thing that I learned about him that I didn't already know. But then in 2020, he had a stroke. And I remember the news came out. I knew it was serious, but I don't think I understood exactly how close we came to losing him. A blood clot traveled from his heart to his brain. He had surgery to remove it, and then the next day, another clot formed. So they had to go back in, and his brain started swelling. There was bleeding, and he needed another operation. He ended up in a medically induced coma on a ventilator. His family later said the survival rate for what had happened to him was around 30%. But when Sinbad finally woke up, he couldn't move his left side. He couldn't hold his own head up. And when I read that, I immediately pictured the Sinbad that I had seen on stage, because this is a 6'5" man. And if you've ever watched any of his specials, you know this man used every inch of that body to perform. And now his family is celebrating that he's able to hold his head up. He spent 9 months in hospitals and rehabilitation before he could even come home. And going home wasn't the end of his recovery, like not even close. He kept doing therapy. His family kept giving updates. A little movement would come back, and then a little more. Things doctors weren't sure would come back started coming back. And then in 2022, his family shared those words that I gave you in the beginning. I am not done. I will not stop fighting until I can walk across the stage again. And now that I've gone back and watched Sinbad perform, that line hits a little different. Because the stage is where this man came alive. He used his whole body up there. And now he's having to relearn how to use parts of that body. But he's already thinking about getting back on stage. For him, for us. I remember hearing about his recovery for a while. Then, like what happens with everything, life moves. I stopped seeing updates. I didn't know where he was in his recovery. So when I started working on this video, I went looking. Then I found out he'd eased back into acting. Tyler Perry put him on Straw, right up there with Taraji. But stand-up is a different mountain. Yeah. And then I found Pasadena, April 29th. This year, the Ice House. For the first time in more than 5 years, Sinbad did stand up again. And his daughter Paige opened for him. And I just sat there looking at the pictures because now I know what I'm looking at. There had been a point where this man couldn't hold his own head up. He spent 9 months away from home. Then years in therapy. Years earlier, he told his family exactly where he intended to end up. Back on stage. Now there he was, on that stage, microphone in hand, and his daughter there. People laughing again. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. So Sinbad, I'm really glad y'all gave me his name, because I started this knowing why I loved him. I knew Coach Oaks, I knew the stand-up, I knew the movies. I knew what it felt like to sit in a room with my family and have that one person on the screen making all of us laugh. But I didn't know about Aruba. I didn't know what the last 5 years had actually looked like for him. And I didn't know until I started working on this that the man who said he was going to walk across that stage again just did. And after everything it took to get there, I'm really glad we get to give you your flowers while you're still standing on that stage. Take a bow, Sinbad. These flowers are for you.